Hi guys, welcome. We're gonna get started in a couple minutes. We'll just let a few more people in. In the meantime, could you guys head on to Poll EV, and there's a few questions that we set up just to gauge a better understanding of who you are and why you came here today and what you want to learn. Yachi will be posting it on our Facebook later on. So yeah, just stay tuned. For those who just joined in, there's a poll EV and the link should be in the chat below. So just fill out the survey and we'll start in a few minutes. Oh, what's spatial? Is that like arrows? Arrow signs? I don't know what. That's cool. Oh, geomatics. Oh, okay. Yeah, I got it wrong. Hey everyone, welcome. Okay, there's still a few people coming in. We'll probably give it around 3 more minutes before we start. Okay, I think there's a lot of computing students. Okay, we can move on to the next one. Ah. Oh, interesting.
Come through, UX. Woo.
Yeah. I feel like these two topics aren't talked about in UniMelb enough. So nice.
What do you mean you've had to deal with UI UX design in my hobby projects? Is it not fun?
That's the best part.
I support this. Thank you, Kwan.
Ooh, product management is catching up. Okay, let's move on to the next. Oh, okay. Wow. Okay, I see a lot of career industry. Some just want to check and like scope it out. Cool.
Whoever said Victoria's, there's no second word for that, but thank you for coming.
They just came here for you. Okay, I think we can get started with the event, but before that, if you guys have any questions, let me just activate the forum. This one, yeah. So just use the same link and you should be able to ask any questions here. Let me know if it doesn't work. Okay, cool. Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the newly formed CISSA product community. And essentially, this community was created to help product managers, product designers, and anything else that falls under product to learn and grow together as a community. And we've also had the privilege to invite some industry leaders for future events. So if you want to stay updated and keep in the loop, join our Discord and product community Facebook group, which Tiana will post in the chat. Oops, okay. Right, so today we have two very special guests. So Victoria, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, so I'm Vic. I'm a third year CS student here at Unimel. Some of you might have I've always known that I didn't want to become a software developer ever since like mid first year, even though I'm in a CS degree. And because of my natural interest towards entrepreneurship, I sort of started leaning towards PM. So I've interned at Atlassian and Cascade as product interns, and yeah, now I'm here to tell you a bit about what this career is about, and yeah, hopefully get you excited about it.
Lovely. I'm Ryan. So I did my Bachelor of Science major in Computing and Software Systems, as a lot of you guys are doing now. Finished that in 2019, and I'm now working as a grad at NAB, doing digital stuff. So a large portion of that is UX things, but I'm also studying my Master of IT part-time, finishing that up, and that's specializing in human-computer interaction. So very much in the UX UI kind of space.
Nice. So I'm Callista, and similar to Victoria and like Ryan, I came from computing and software systems, decided it wasn't for me. So I transferred over to the Bachelor of Design, and I'm doing digital technologies now. And I'm also working part-time as a UX UI designer at Imagine. Cool, okay, so today's agenda is going to be basically broken down into 3 sections. So the first one is the introduction to product management, and then we'll have a short Q&A after that. And then Ryan will be going through UX and UI, what's it about. And then if we have extra time, we might do a mini design like activity, but we'll have to like check in on the time. So yeah, and take it away, Victoria.
Hey everyone, so I'm going to start off by talking about product management. I think there is a Q&A, like a short Q&A section just after sort of my part before Ryan talks about UI UX. So feel free to drop the questions in the poll of that they shared in the chat. And yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions you have. This is a bit of an agenda for my part. So I want to walk you through what PM is, and then I want to touch briefly on some of my PM experiences. So hopefully you get some context about what it's actually like in the job. And thirdly, I want to give you some sort of advice if you do become interested in product management or you're already interested in PM. Oops. Cool, all right. Wait, is it? Okay, cool. So product management is usually described like this. This was a chart that was shown to me by one of the heads of products at Atlassian when I interned last summer. And it's a very interdisciplinary role that sits in between UX, technology, and business. But you as a product manager are not like of like the 3 So you're not like all of like business analyst, designer, and engineering lead. Those are specific roles done by other people. You're here to sort of coordinate building a product and its features in a software company, usually. I think this remote control thing is not really working.
She's a bit laggy.
Yeah, it's a bit laggy. Yeah, okay, awesome. Cool. So I created this little diagram to show you where product manager would sit in a software company. So usually in a software company that has PMs, product managers, they already work in an agile way. And so big companies like Google, Atlassian are all structured like this. And if you see that little circle, I mean, it's not pretty little, it's pretty big. That oval in the middle, that's called a triad, and it's made up of a product manager, an engineering lead, and a product designer. And under the engineering lead, there are a couple of programmers or developers that sort of help develop the product. The PM sits in sort of the same hierarchy as the engineering lead and the product designer in helping sort of coordinate sort of business processes and also help engineering and design, which I will go into more detail later. And outside of that triad, you're talking to product marketing, sales, and other PMs, and product managers usually report to what we call heads of products, which will be a bit clearer in the next diagram. So this is completely inaccurate, but and I've never worked at Google before, but I wanted to use Google as an analogy to show you sort of where product managers sit in a company. So the guy above, like in the blue background with the glasses, that's Google's CEO. And then you probably have a CPO, which is this lady in the middle. And then you have sort of heads of products that manage either one product or groups of products. So you might have like a head of product for Google search, which handles sort of the product and the strategy and just, yeah, everything related to the Google search business. So that's the Google search head of product. And then you might have like a head of product for a certain line of products like Maps and Google Translate and Chrome. And then you might have one other PM, which does platform, which I'll explain in a bit. And for example, if you are a PM, so your title is PM, you'll probably be this little person down the bottom. So product managers, some people describe product management as the CEO of product, but I hope this diagram shows you that in every product, there are at least like more than one product managers who are sort of leading the strategic thinking and the direction of the product. And usually, let's say if you're a PM in Google Maps, you would sort of handle navigation. So all the navigation features of Google Maps, or you might be handling transport. So you might be thinking about like transport routes like PTV and how to make that accessible to people. And if you're a platform product manager, so that's a product manager, you also have a platform product manager, which actually whose work isn't confined to just one of the products that Google offers. So if you're if you're like an identity product manager, for example, which handles profiles, logins, etc., those sort of features exist across the whole Google product suite or offering or product line. So for example, when you create a Google profile, that's reflected on Chrome as well as reflected on Gmail, for example. So you'll sort of provide support to other, a whole line of products essentially. So hopefully this gives you a brief overview of where PM sits in a tech company. All right, cool. To paint this, what a PM does in more detail, I created this PM profile that hopefully explains what a PM does a bit better. So I would say there's so many different flavors of PM. So as I've shown you just now, if you're working on Google Maps versus you're working on identity services for the Google product line, your focuses will be very different and your priorities will be very different as well. This is definitely not a definitive list of what a PM does, but something that I've sort of like generalized. So I want you to keep that in mind. So some examples of what a PM would do is to do discovery work. So defining what the next priorities for a certain part of the product should be. So how do we improve navigation in Google Maps, for example? And you would do that discovery through user interviews, through competitive research, and through customer feedback. And using all of that information, you feed that into strategic planning. So PMs care a lot about product strategy as well, because it's a business after all, and you want to be able to win, as in stay on top of your competitors, and also sort of provide the highest impact features for your users. And alongside that strategic planning comes road mapping and prioritization. So that's to make clear to your triad and even people outside of your triad or immediate team about what the priorities for this team are. And yeah, so alongside road mapping and prioritization, very clear words, a very concise language about what needs to be built. So writing user stories, if you've heard of what they are before, writing objectives, and metric setting and analytics. You want to sort of plan metrics and events. So tracking how well a feature is doing over time to help you understand what next to prioritize. And a couple of other stuff like experimentation. So sort of seeing how best to sort of like what the best user experience for a certain feature is, for example. So that might come in the form of A/B testing. So that's just an example. You got to do stakeholder management because you're sort of in the middle of a lot of different people and you need to communicate in the right way. So communicating across, so to engineering and design, and also communicating upwards, so to your heads of products, talking about why you think the company should prioritize and sort of invest in a certain project or initiative for the next maybe 2 months, and giving some really, really good evidence from that discovery work and sort of analytics work that you've done. Also doing go-to-market, so working closely with product marketing to actually craft the best messages and craft the best messages for your users so they understand what the new features are about and how to use it, and sort of getting everyone hyped and more people, like driving high adoption for your features, essentially. Cool. Awesome. Okay, so I think to sum it all up, I would like to sort of group like what a great PM is into 3 buckets, or sort of 3 key sort of things about a PM. You're the voice of the customer. So as a PM, you need to balance customer needs and business strategy. So what that means is, let's say, like I'm sure everyone here uses YouTube or watches YouTube or has watched YouTube. And there will be so many different requests about how to make the viewing experience and the community experience on YouTube better. And as a PM, you need to prioritize all of these needs and sort of feedback and comments and match them up with a business strategy. So how do you stay on top of your competitors? Like, how are we better than Vimeo, for example? And making sure that your team is doing impact-driven work. So impact as in like creating the best business impact, for example. And also you need to be a domain expert. So for example, Google Maps PMs would know about the navigation and sort of, I guess, the mapping and geomatic space pretty well. And once they understand that domain, they're better able to come up with features that solve these user problems and customer needs in a better way. Second most important thing is to have North Star vision. So what that means is, as the team, for the team, you need to define the what and the why, because work can be very, very ambiguous when when all these different sort of suggestions and customer needs are thrown in your way as a team. And as a PM, you're here to sort of break down the problems and provide everyone with a clear definition of what you'll be focusing on in the next few months or the next year, for example. And importantly also, you're not here to define every how. So what that means is you do not dictate how, let's say, a feature is designed, because that's the role of the product designer, or you don't sort of dictate the system architecture, because that's up to the engineering team to do. But as a PM, you need to give a very clear direction and a motivation to everybody about why we're building what we're building and what we're building and what's in scope and out of scope. Also, a third important thing is you need to lead without authority. So I've always heard that PMs have to be people without ego. You're here not to manage people, you're managing a product. And you need to provide support. So your job is to provide support to the whole team, engineering and design, and also people outside of your team as well. So it's about good communication, good influencing skills, and really, really strong empathy. Nice. All right, I'm going to talk about some of the PM experiences that I've had to sort of paint a picture of how I got into PM, which you might be inspired by as well. So as I've told you, I've been really passionate about entrepreneurship since I was a teenager, I guess. So when I joined university, I joined NACTIS, which is a student organization revolving around social entrepreneurship. And I led a project, Cards for Cause. And because of that product experience that I had there, I was lucky enough to be able to intern at Atlassian for a couple of months. And then I joined as an intern at a startup called Cascade, doing product marketing. Sorry, the sunlight's kind of weird, by the way. Product marketing and growth product management. And next year I'll be joining as an associate product manager at a Sydney scale-up. Cool. So to give you some context about what a day-to-day could look like for a PM. So at my internship in Atlassian, I was in this year-long project in what we called incident management. So to give you some context, Jira Service Management is sort of like a sister product to Jira, for those of you who know Jira. And Atlassian had another product called OpsGenie, has another product, they haven't discarded it yet. And it was about, so OpsGenie was a product that Atlassian had acquired a few years ago, created by people not from the company. So it had a very different backend and a very different user experience. But there were features in OpsGenie, there are features in OpsGenie that would very much fit and complement and be very useful to the users of Jira Service Management, which is the feature that I was, the product that I was working on. So my project was about how to create a coherent user experience between Jira Service Management and OpsGenie, and making sure architecturally it was a coherent experience as well. so introducing opportunity features. So this product B, I guess, to Jira Service Management, product A. Cool. All right, so now that I've sort of given you an overview of what PM is and my experiences, I would like to leave you with 3 sort of key tips or key advice if you're interested in PM. So my biggest advice to anyone who's interested in PM is to get involved. PMs are very self-driven people, they're entrepreneurial, and if you're interested in developing personal projects and startup ideas, then I think PM is a pretty good career for you, because the whole thing about PM is to break down ambiguity, break down problems into sort of bite sizes, and communicating to people what's the best way to approach things. So if you have that experience of getting involved, yeah, it's going to help you in the long run. Also, because PM is such a hype career at the moment, there's so many online resources if you're interested in it, which I think Calista will share later. So I've compiled a few that you guys can read up on later as well. You can join product communities and have conversations with product managers to understand their work, because like I said, each PM has a very different role across different teams and companies. And also, I think this ties in with the get involved point, is to hustle in a healthy way. Remember that there are many different ways to get into PM. Lots of people don't get into PM straight out of university because it's just not that well sort of set. Well, it's a defined career, sorry. It's just not very popular here in Australia yet. And I think there's only like one structured graduate program for product management, which is the Atlassian one. So yeah, I know a lot of PMs have come from different backgrounds, like design, some come from sales, customer success, some have been lawyers in the past as well. So yeah, just sort of hustling. Cool, and that's the end of my part. So I'm happy to take any questions now.
Great. Thanks, Victoria, for the crash course on product management. We have a few questions here, so if anyone hasn't yet, you can drop your questions in the poll EV link, or you can also choose to unmute yourself if you were the one who asked it. For the first question, we'll be sending like a resource list later on, but maybe the second one, Victoria, do you want to answer that?
Cool. Okay, interview process for a PM role. So usually tech companies split their PM interview processes in a few stages or phases. Firstly, like what software engineers get with a sort of lead code component, so a take-home component of a coding challenge. PM roles also have a similar thing, but it's a take-home component where you maybe analyze a product or give recommendations. And then after that, there are different rounds of interviews. Different companies do it differently. I've had interviews with different PMs focusing on both personal experiences and sort of product spidey senses, what they like to call. And I've also had interviews with tech leads and design as well to see how well you sort of would fit into Triad and how well you would fit into the company. Yeah.
Nice. Second question, what do you think makes a good product?
Yeah, so what I think makes a good product, I think it has to solve genuine customer problems. I think, yeah, one of the problems that I see with a lot of failed startup ideas is they think something is a really good idea without doing user testing, without talking to people and validating concepts, or they're inflexible and they don't want to pivot and they want to go hard at like what they think the best idea is without really taking the customer or the user as the centerpiece of the product. So yeah, good products solve real problems. Yeah, that's basically it. There are other sort of things that make a good product, but I think that's the most important. Yeah.
Nice. We're going to take a few more questions before we move on, but Okay, maybe this one. Is it possible to land an internship when you are just getting into this industry?
Yes, so I've done 2 product internships previously. I think the Atlassian one is the most straightforward, as in like it's the most mature and most set up. So it's like clearly targeted towards students, and it's quite a competitive process, the Atlassian one, because there aren't many PM interns. So if you remember my diagram, there's 1 PM for a triad of like 15 people. So the ratio between software developers and PMs are like as in there's 1 PM to like 10 devs or something. So it's quite a competitive process. I think apart from big internships like Atlassian, if you are someone who likes to hustle, you can create opportunities for yourself by sort of hitting startups up and being like, I have these experiences. I think I would be a good product manager because of XYZ qualities about myself and my skills. And yeah, just yeah, you can intern at a startup as well.
Maybe let's just take 2 last questions. Is a portfolio necessary for product management roles?
I've never had to show a portfolio, but I think like real life experiences are really useful, and they don't have to be, oh, I created a startup, I created a product and I sort of sold it to people. Like that is really useful experience, by the way, but experiences where you created something, where you sort of went through that whole process of finding a product market fit, doing user testing and stuff. Having those experiences are really useful in PM interviews.
That's nice. I guess one last question. What particular subjects would prepare you for a career in PM?
Yeah, that's a very common question. I would say like I wouldn't like cherry pick any from uni Melb. I think I've heard that having understanding of programming, of computer science principles is really, really important as a PM. Oh, well, not really important. Like I said, some PMs come from like a legal background or customer success background. You can come from anywhere. But if you have a strong understanding of computer science principles, it's really useful in being able to talk with engineering, because you're working on a tech product after all. And that not only sort of gains trust and respect for you as a product manager with the engineering manager or your engineers in the team, it's also useful in sort of understanding like architectural concepts, sort of like APIs and other sort of related concepts that is really important in software development.
Nice. Okay. Thank you so much, Victoria. We're going to move on to the intro to UX part, which is going to be talked about by Ryan. So go ahead.
Hello. Okay. I would like to quickly start off by just saying that if you have any questions or anything, feel free to just shout out. Just interrupt me. I don't care. I love questions. I don't have like a Q&A section at the end, so just really go for it. But lovely. With that, I'll be just covering briefly what is UX, some kind of activities you do in the industry, and some next steps if you are interested to get more into it. You also might note that that this kind of was supposed to cover UX and UI. So I am touching on a little bit into UI, but UI is not really my background. So I don't really do too much in it, but they definitely are very, very interlinked, which I'll get into in a little bit. Lovely. Hang on. Okay, thanks, Galita. So first things first, what is UX? So we can jump onto Wikipedia, the most reliable source in the world. So it's really the process of manipulating user behavior through usability, usefulness, and desirability provided in the interaction with a product. So pretty much it's really just about like how people feel about a product and their pleasure and like satisfaction when using it. And it's really the the overall impression of how good it is to use, right down to like the like sensual effects and like small details, that kind of stuff. So it's not just about like the UI and like how pretty it looks, but it's just the whole experience. I think it's best explained with like an example. Here we go. Does this work? I don't think, hey, there we go, it's good. An example or a counterexample with bad UX. So if you look at this tab here, it's pretty obvious it's a tab. Like it's standard stuff, nothing too crazy. But if you kind of think about it a bit more and you look at the dial thing on the side, how do you, wait, we've got two questions here. There we go. Which way would you turn the handle for hot or cold water? And then how, like, if that is changing the temperature, then how do you change the volume of like how fast the water is coming out, you know? Like when you think about it, this just isn't very good UX. Like this kind of thing. This highlights also the fact that UX isn't just for graphical interfaces that you look at, like how pretty things are on a map or on your app or like on your screen. It is everyday items as well. So everything can be included in user experience design. Yeah, sweet. Oh, wait, did I? Oh yeah, cool. Okay, so pretty much we'll jump straight into what you actually end up doing in industry. So just as a quick reminder, I currently work at NAB doing a bunch of UX stuff. So I do a bunch of these things as well, but also have been studying things at uni and my master's of IT. So the scope of UX, a lot of people think that it's just like the interface layout and visual design. So like making things pretty on the screen. But it does include a lot of extra things as well. So going through all of the research or like statistics, you're creating like personas or like ideas of who the people are that you're designing for. Then you also have like the design, so like the interface layout and visual design, but then going into like prototyping, usability and like analysis and this kind of stuff as well. So there is a lot of like problem solving and it can be quite analytical if you do want it to be. So there's a lot of space there to kind of utilize whatever skills you have. It's great. The core thing, I feel like a bunch of you might have seen this before. This is like kind of the cornerstone of most design processes, is the double diamond. So when you're trying to solve a problem, or like even if before you really understand what the problem is and you want to like make like a killer app, you just want to make like a good thing, a good design, then you'll start off by trying to kind of understand what the problem is. So you'll really just start off with just a general kind of idea that I want to solve something. And then you'll go out trying to understand by going to like doing interviews and like going out looking in the field and like what is the problem? Like what is out there that could be solved, if that makes sense. From there, you define down to a specific problem. So you're just trying to get the definition of the problem and what you want to solve for. So that's really more like analysis of this kind of research that you've done and kind of narrowing it down so it's a goal that you can achieve pretty much. So you have a concrete, specific definition of the problem. From there, you're developing ideas. So you're ideating, you're trying to work out all the different possible options that could solve and address this problem. And then from there, you've got this massive thing of different ideas and you're going down to finalizing and refining those, kind of really deciding on an idea and then running with it, refining it, making it perfect before you have a solution at the end. This is the general double diamond. Any questions or anything on that? No? Lovely. Cool.
When I have a question.
Yeah.
So like when you did your design portfolio, do you write the report of the entire, do you put the double diamond process in your report? Or like, do you need to write a report for the app or the interface you're developing?
yeah, for a good portfolio, then you will go through this whole process of kind of like background research, understanding the problem, defining exactly what the problem is, and then developing out all your ideas and then going down to the final solution. Because that's something that a lot of people kind of miss in portfolios, is that it's not just about making a pretty thing at the end. What you'll be doing is problem solving and doing this whole process in the actual position. And so they want to be able to see you can do it and you can solve these problems. And that like, if there's weird things that come up, then you note them down and be like, look, I solved this problem and I worked my way through it. Does that make sense? Like, should be including all of it.
I mean, like, do you put it in a, like, summarize everything in a report, or you just note down the process?
Yeah. Wait, are they the same thing? Or wait, what's the difference?
Well, I don't really know much about the industry in general, but in my mind, like, you need to have something to summarize your process and show it on your portfolio, right? So
Yeah.
in your experience, do you do something like that?
Yeah, commonly when you have like an executive summary, so just like a short, quick summary of the whole project, then I guess you probably would focus more on the portion after the definition of the problem and just kind of note what you did to get to that. But focusing more on this side, if that's kind of what you're asking. But in a full portfolio, I would recommend having at least one full kind of case study or like this whole process out for one project, at least. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, cheers. That's good. I'll quickly get into how things are structured at NAB. So obviously this is not going to be exactly representative across all of the different companies because design is quite different in it's just different in different companies, really. The way that it's structured and how work is kind of allocated, I guess. But yeah, so mapping to the double diamond, at NAB, you start off with customer experience. So there'll be a full team of like customer experience specialists or designers that will go out and kind of try and understand the problem, going through like research and then going into kind of synthesizing, analyzing, and trying to develop a problem. So that can be someone's entire job, and that's a whole team's worth of people. From there is like a bit of overlap with user experience. So that has portions of kind of like doing some research and synthing it down and like doing analysis, and then also kind of ideating and figuring out solutions. And then the final stage, and that at least, is UI. So that's just about polishing up and making things look exactly how it should be in the final delivered product. So yeah, UI is generally like the very last step. Just because it is shown as a small thing on here doesn't mean that there isn't a lot of work to do there. So to make it look absolutely perfect and adhering to all the guidelines and accessibility and that kind of stuff as well, then there's a lot of work to do. But as far as the double diamond goes, it is the very, very end, final polishing stuff. Does this make sense? How things kind of broken down? Cool. Lovely. I'll go into some like general activities you end up doing and kind of artifacts you end up making as a UXer or like CXer, I guess. So you'll start off with some like user research. So this can be a whole bunch of different things. So it can be interviews like in here, like one-on-ones. You can do like focus groups. So interviewing a group of people. You can observe people in situ, like where they're using the product or in the context that the experience is going to be in. You can do like diary studies or like contextual analysis, like a lot of different research things in there. From there, we're kind of continuing along on like the double diamond process. you've got your kind of results from these research pieces, and you can use affinity mapping, or there's other different things as well, but affinity mapping is very common for breaking all of those insights down into manageable kind of chunks and into insights that you can action and you can do stuff with. So that's a whole session in of itself on how to do affinity mapping, but it's pretty much like a whole lot of post-it notes for all the kind of stuff that you found out in your research. And then you group them into themes, and then each theme you put in a little couple different outcomes or little actions that you want to do from there. When you have a bit of an understanding of the user group, then you can build out some personas. So personas are just kind of a representative person or people then that I guess are just they're important people as part of your audience in your user group that you're designing for. So you can use personas later on to just validate that what you're designing, it does fit in with your audience and your user group at the end. Personas are a little bit confusing sometimes, so feel free to ask me later if it's confusing. From there, you go into user flows. So this is really about understanding what kind of steps happen in any kind of process. So that can be a software process of going through different screens, or it can be like I guess like day-to-day normal process of things that have to happen in a certain order, like ordering a credit card. You have to get approved and that kind of stuff first, which can come into more UX and solution-based when you're identifying problems or weird things that happen in these flows and what can be improved. Then from there, if you're getting into more solution mode and figuring out what your solution would look like, then you generally do wireframing and prototypes. So that's just really low fidelity, really kind of basic, super fast kind of drawings of what the interface should look like in the end. So that's a wireframe. And if it's interactive, then it's a prototype. And then from there, you can evaluate how good these prototypes are with user testing before or even after you've released the final product. Cool. Any questions on those ones? There's a lot there. Then yes, these are probably the most important artifacts and activities that you end up doing as a UXer.
I think someone in the chat said, is UX development the same as UX design?
Yeah, UX development. So what I mentioned in my introduction thing before, that internship was I did both UX design and software development. So I just call it a UX development internship because a lot of different companies, I guess in a lot of smaller companies, it doesn't make sense to have one UXer that just does UX because it's one specific part of the whole product. You don't need a UXer all the time if you only have a couple different products. But yeah, so you can combine the UX role with some other things like basic front-end development or UI stuff as well. It can be lumped in with other stuff. So does that answer the question? Is that good? Coding is definitely not a critical skill for UX designers. Very few people are very good at UX and also good at coding. So it can be good to understand, I guess, HTML and basic front end kind of stuff to understand what's doable on the front end and as a UI design. But it's definitely not critical. You will not end up coding at all. Lovely. Any other questions on this one here? Otherwise, we can get into next section.
Question. What is the difference between a UX portfolio and a product portfolio?
Very good question. I honestly don't have too much background in product, so I do more in UX space. I'm still not super clear on exactly what the exact difference is between the two of them. So I don't know if I'm qualified to answer that question. Callista or Vic, do you know more? But
By
like
product, do you mean like product designer? Or...
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I have experience working as a product designer, and I guess the main difference is in product design, you're a lot more like you're more involved in the product itself. So you have to work really closely with the product managers to identify like the strategies and where your product is heading, basically. So you're a lot more involved in that side. Whereas UX and UI, it's just sort of the user research and UI component. So you don't really have a much say in like the business goals and the product roadmap. So I guess if you were to tailor your portfolio for like a product role, I guess mentioning a lot of things with the product itself, maybe mentioning business goals, mentioning how this product fits into your whole like ecosystem of products. And then if for UX and UI, I guess you just focus on the whole user research and user interface design part of things. Does that make sense?
Cool.
Yep.
Yes.
We're learning new things as well. That's great. Yeah, if we want to jump over to the next section, just conscious of time. Only got 8 minutes left.
Okay, I have one
yeah.
last question.
Yeah.
I heard like a lot of designer are using Figma these days. So between Adobe, what is it called again?
XD?
Adobe XD and Figma, which one like the designer prefer more?
So I'd pop Sketch into that list as well. So those are like the top 3 ones that people use in industry. From my experience, so NAB exclusively uses Sketch, but you'll notice that like a lot more companies are focusing more on Figma because it does have it's just better. Like it's just straight up better across the board. It's way better for like cross collaboration as well, because you can get like multiple people using it at the same time, auto save, that kind of stuff. It's great, love it. If you're going to be focusing on one to really flesh out, I'd go for Figma because they're also very similar. So
yeah, all good. Thank you.
cheers. Yeah, a super quick section on UX next steps. So this is quite similar to the section that I did in my last kind of like introductory UX UI thing. Lovely. Yeah, so seems like most of you guys are in undergrad. So there are a bunch of different subjects that do kind of UX stuff. There's obviously more coming out as well because like there's the design degree, but there are a bunch here that I've popped in. I actually haven't done like any of them. So I did usability engineering back in my undergrad, which was really good. And I think that they've just kind of taken and put different pieces into different subjects. But yeah, usability evaluation methods, fundamentals of interaction design, graphics, yeah, they're like pretty intro stuff. Graphics and interaction is more focused on Unity and more like 3D design stuff, but there are still human-computer interaction sections in there as well. I'm actually doing that this semester. Here we go, going back into it. And then also user interface development. There might be some other subjects in there as well, but I would recommend looking into these subjects because they are quite good for preparing you for a UX or UI future. Cool. If you are really interested to go like really go into it, then there is the Master of IT specializing in human-computer interaction. So that's what I'm currently doing now. It is a lot of fun. There's very good subjects. It's also, you only need to get like 65% WAM and you're automatically in as like a CSP, pretty sure. So it's quite easy to get into and it's very good. It's been really good for my portfolio and like building out different interesting projects. Very good there as well. If you're looking for more resources, then the book that I'd recommend would be The Design of Everyday Things. It is a bit of a classic. It's good because it's not just focusing on like the UI elements as I was saying before, but the user experience of everyday items as well. If you're looking for pretty UI stuff, then Behance and Dribbble are the top 2 kind of classic UI UX kind of things. but there's definitely more out there as well, a lot of different blogs. But yeah, that's my section on UX and the UI. Any kind of last questions for that section?
So I'm in Bachelor of Arts and I already took Fundamental of Interaction Design and I want to take more design-based subjects. And from the handbook, like I couldn't find any info like how to apply to it. It says I need to apply to a community program, which I don't think is part of the undergrad degree. So do you know like
Which subject?
Pardon?
Which subject do you have to apply for, like a community?
Mostly usability evaluation methods and user interface development.
Is it because it's an second year one, or?
It's not that, it just probably due to my nature of being in a Bachelor of Arts, I cannot study these subjects, but I can study Fundamental of Interaction Design.
That is interesting. Yeah, I'm not too sure about like the full handbook details because I didn't do these subjects myself.
Yeah, I can probably answer
Cosette?
this. So yes, so I was in Bachelor of Science, and then I think Ryan showed me this whole list of subjects, and I was really interested in them. But it's not offered to science students. I'm not sure about art students, so I was a bit sad over that, and I like emailed the subject coordinators and stuff. But eventually, I did decide to transfer over to Bachelor of Design just so I can take these subjects and do what I actually want to do. But I guess my piece of advice is that if you can't study them in university, there's a lot of different ways that you can practice UX. So for example, joining hackathons, working on personal projects, and a lot of times a UX and UI designer is needed in all these sort of software like projects. So it's a good way to get started.
Yeah, I think my advice as far as like moving into a career of UX, there's so many different pathways that you can go into to get into UX. Like you can go down the more design side, you can go to the more like computer science, like I don't know, computer side. But it seems like because it's a bit of a niche subject to like, sorry, a niche kind of area to get into, then what I found success in at least was to like apply for kind of other jobs that are kind of close to it and then just weasel your way in from there, if that makes sense. So yeah, so I just like started with my grad job at NAB and then kind of shifted teams into UX because they generally do need a lot of help and they because there's not too many UXs around. But you'll find that there aren't so many roles out there advertised, at least at like a junior level. So it's definitely worth going for like alternate pathways as well.
Then do you consider Master of IT one of the pathway?
Yeah, definitely. It was very useful, definitely.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I think to answer Taha's question, I was in, I think 1.5 years into my science degree, and I was able to transfer all my credits, which I'm really grateful for. And yeah, if you want to ask me more questions, just feel free to talk to me on Discord or LinkedIn. Yeah. Okay, cool. So we compiled a bunch of resources for you to get started in product management and product and UX and UI design. And I think there's a link that Tiana will send over. Yeah, okay. And it's sort of a living document. So we'll be adding stuff as we go. And if you guys find any like new stuff or things you think would be good for this document, just feel free to ping us on Discord. And there's also links to the Discord and product community Facebook group. Yeah, okay. So I'm really excited to announce that next week we'll be having a breaking into product event with Airwalks and Canva and maybe some other industry leader. We're still in the midst of planning. But basically, we'll be having product managers and product designers talking about their roles, any advice they can give, interview tips, and yeah, anything basically. So next Tuesday on August 24th from 12 to 1 p.m.